This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, another very important show. We're going to have General Paul Vallely on later, a great American patriot, talking about not just Fox News and how it's degenerating today. He sees the same thing. Laurie Loon, who he knew because he was used to be on Fox News a lot in the early years. Laurie Loon was the head booker and many other aspects of it. We had her on last week dealing with the cover-up of sexual misconduct and harassment and assault of Roger Ailes by the current CEO of Fox News, Suzanne Scott, incredibly a woman covering up these crimes against another woman. She continues on at Fox, and there have been developments this week about that. But we're also going to be talking about some other things. And in the last few days, I watched again, because I thought it would be good to put everything in perspective, the HBO miniseries John Adams. Many years ago, I had read the book John Adams by David McCullough. David McCullough is a liberal. So while it's a great book, it's pretty much geared to support federalism, to support central control. But it's an excellent recitation of American history. And it was, of course, put to film with regard to HBO. I recommend everybody to watch it. It's super important because it shows you what we're going through today. The crimes against the colonies, against the American people by King George III paled in comparison to what we're now having to endure. In fact, at least the king was an educated man. I mean, at least he had some sophistication. Today, we see what's going on in our society, particularly in the capital of corruption, so-called swamp in Washington, D.C., that you have these people out there who have no regard for the law, who are inarticulate, who are uneducated, and are doing nothing but promoting themselves. And I'm talking about people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the two Muslim congresswomen, Ilhan Omar, and the other one, Tlaib. I always forget her first name. Frankly, I wish I could forget all of them. But there are also people in the Justice Department, my alma mater, who are a complete disgrace to this country and have committed treason against the country. And there's a scene in this John Adams miniseries where John Adams is at the First Continental Congress in my birthplace of Philadelphia, which is the birthplace of liberty, I'm very proud to say, at Independence Hall. And after the first session is over, he says, "What did we accomplish? We're just sitting around here talking. Nothing gets accomplished. People just like to hear themselves pontificate. And, I want action. I want to wage a revolution." And he then goes on to convince the delegates at a reconvened Continental Congress that, in fact, a revolution is the only way to bring about freedom and liberty to our soon-to-be great nation. Well, we have degenerated in the last 240-some years. And in fact, another one of the great founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, predicted it. He said we'd have to have revolutions every other generation. I'm not advocating this. I believe in peaceful and legal revolution. But Jefferson even said we're going to have to spill blood because we know that this thing's going to go downhill. We know that there are corrupt persons in our society that will try to destroy it from within, ultimately. And of course, Jefferson and Adams, although they loved each other as friends, they had to part their ways at a certain point. Jefferson did a few things which were kind of tricky and perhaps unethical to try to get Adams not elected for a second term, and they didn't talk for a number of years. But then years later, they came together again, and they both were communicating, And by the grace of God, it could only have happened by God. They both died on the anniversary of the 50th revolution of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th at the very same moment. Adams in the Boston area of Massachusetts, and of course, Jefferson at Monticello in Virginia. I mean, it's more than a fairy tale. It's reality. And it tells you that God created this country. It tells you that God oversees what this country is doing. It gives us some hope. But it also tells us, if you read the book John Adams, and I urge you to read it because everything about American history in these early years, up to the time of John Quincy Adams, of course, was John Adams' son who became a president after that. It tells you everything about American history. Of course, it favors a little bit the Federalist approach, the central approach over Jefferson, but that's fine, okay? It's still a great recitation, a great work. But one of the things it's told me is that we, the American people, are tired of sitting around watching entertainment, either in Congress or on Fox News or places like that. You know, all we're doing is talking. And what Adams said at the time, he says, I want action. The Freedom Watch is beginning its action within the next few weeks. And watch what we do. Our citizens' grand juries are cranking up. We've had to get the resources to do it. We've had to have the time. I've been preoccupied in a number of cases. But now's the crucial moment. And the first person to be indicted, the first person to be tried, the first person to be convicted, the first person to be sentenced and have those sentences carried out legally and peacefully has to be Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General at the Department of Justice. Just this week, he was supposed to leave. And we know what Rosenstein did. He tried to wage a coup. He had tried to convince others at the Justice Department, whether it was Andrew McCabe or James Comey or the Lovebirds, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, to have him wired. And he would go in and get the president to say something that could be used to have the president removed under the 25th Amendment as being mentally unfit to be in office. This is treason. This is sedition. Rosenstein has also rubber-stamped everything that Robert Mueller has wanted. He has subverted the Constitution. He has violated our Bill of Rights. He is someone that we need to make an example of peacefully and legally. Peacefully and legally tar Rod Rosenstein. There's a scene in the beginning of the HBO miniseries John Adams where a traitor at the Port of Boston was tarred and feathered. Now, I'm not suggesting that we actually tar and feather Rod Rosenstein, but he needs to be held accountable under the rule of law. Citizens' grand juries are the only way to do it. It's not going to happen in our justice system. Our justice system's a joke. You know, I've known that, and that's why I started Judicial Watch back in 1994, because it was clear that the judges on these courts, generally speaking, do not have the courage. They're political animals. They are appointed by establishment politicians, senators recommended to the president based on large contributions generally made to the senatorial campaign or the president of the United States. We don't get the best and the brightest. I've had 5 judges in my entire legal career who had any courage. One of them is Royce Lamberth of the federal court in the District of Columbia. But there are very few who will stand up to the establishment, that will stand up to the powers to be. So therefore, we have to ourselves, as during the days leading up to the Declaration of Independence and thereafter, enforce our own rule of law, enforce our Constitution, enforce the rule of God, natural law. We need to do it ourselves, peacefully and legally. So Rod Rosenstein, of course, he's not going to be the only one who's indicted in those citizens' grand juries. There's Hillary Clinton. There's Barack Obama. There's Michelle Obama. There's all these characters at the Justice Department I just mentioned, and characters are too nice a name to describe them, that need to be held to account under the rule of law. So go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org. No one will do this but Larry Klayman and Freedom Watch. Judicial Watch won't do that, my former group. Tom Fitton, who's not a lawyer, won't do that. They want the easy, low-hanging fruit. They just want to get documents. Well, you know what? There were documents at the Continental Congress in the days leading up to 1776. Those documents weren't worth the documents they were written on. Action had to be taken. There were all kinds of documents. They were writing letters to King George III saying, gee, we'll be nice to you if you'll be nice to us. You know, we need action here. And we don't need a charade either by Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch or by Fox News that somehow by disclosing information, this is going to change things. It's not going to change things. The American people need to take action just like our founding fathers did, and we have the right to do it under our legal system and under God's grace, and that's what we're going to be doing. But you know what? We do have cases where we're hard-hitting cases at Freedom Watch, and occasionally we do break through with a good judge who will take action. But this week I want to tell you something that's been going on, and this is a good example. Devin Nunes, a congressman, files this lawsuit against Twitter. Well, you know, it's great for PR. Of course, Fox News picks up on it, and they promote it because he's a congressman, and you know somehow he's entitled to greater credibility than anyone else in this country. Well, Nunes filed it, but it's a completely losing case. It's the Communications Decency Act that's going to prevent that because Congress, whose pockets were lined with lobbyist money, put this law in years ago that protects the internet providers like Twitter from any liability for defamation, slander, or anything else. On the other hand, we at Freedom Watch filed a lawsuit against Twitter, against Google, against YouTube, against Instagram, against Apple, against Facebook, an antitrust violation, restraint of trade, agreement in restraint of trade monopolization. It gets around this Communications Decency Act. It gets assigned to this Trump judge. You know, let me tell you something. I'm nonpartisan. You know, I'm not going to support somebody just because he was picked by Trump. His name's Trevor McFadden. Now, he's not a bad man, but he's got no guts. He's an establishment politician in robes. He was recommended by people like Matt Schlapp of the American Conservative Union, who's a lobbyist. He was recommended by the Federal Society, lobbyists. We need really good judges. When I come back, I'm going to explain to you how this tells you what's going on in our judicial system, not just at the Justice Department, but in the judiciary and in the government agencies and departments. I'll be right back to fill you in. In the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, join our Justice League.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let's talk about this antitrust case that I brought against the social media companies. The social media companies, they all live in Silicon Valley. They live in Northern California. This is the bastion of leftism. I don't call it liberalism because, you know, in Canada or in Europe, to be a liberal is to be a conservative. It's not liberalism. It is leftism, okay? It's leftist ideology. Now, they all have dinner together. They all know each other. After President Trump was elected, they all sat around and conspired to decide how they were going to destroy this president and get him out of office. They want their people in. They want their leftist politicians in that'll scratch their backs. It'll put in the Communications Decency Act and things like that. So I filed this antitrust suit, and, you know, I want to break up this monopoly, and I also want large damages for what's been going on. Freedom Watch has been affected. Our YouTubes have barely gone up in the last several years, although we're making a lot of news. They were going down. They actually went down about 35,000 subscribers several months ago. They're picking up a little bit now because I sued YouTube, Google, and they know that they can't get away with this. And also Laura Loomer, who was knocked off of Twitter simply because she raised issues concerning Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, even before she became a congresswoman, that this person was tied to Sharia law, and the Sharia law discriminates against women. It discriminates against homosexuals, gays, lesbians. It discriminates against infidels, and that's to put it mildly. It'd like to destroy infidels and, frankly, have us all dead. So, but she didn't even say that. She was still knocked off of Twitter. So I brought this lawsuit. It was assigned randomly to this Trump-appointed judge, Trevor McFadden. He recently dismissed the case, claiming that a case which is implausible, well, it was in his opinion it's implausible, cannot go forward. He said we weren't specific enough. Well, go look at the lawsuit we filed. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Look at that complaint. It's extremely specific. It has market shares. It talks about what happened to Freedom Watch, what happened to Laura Loomer, what's happening to others in the conservative community, this discrimination, which keeps us from communicating with the American people and teaching good conservative values and values of liberty and the values of our founding fathers. And this was instrumental in the revolution because we had to unite the colonies. And it was the printing press that did that. Now we have social media, which is even more powerful. But conservatives have been largely frozen out. And we need to take action, not by the bogus, non-meritorious cases of Devin Nunes that did this for publicity to raise money for himself for notoriety, but through a real lawsuit. Well, Trevor dismisses this without prejudice. It means I can refile it, and we'll shove it back to him, and we're going to bring it before another court and another judge, and we're going to prevail in the end. Now, even the president, Trump, has said, well, this is an antitrust violation. It's collusion. You heard that in the last week. That's exactly what our case was about. So we need your support for that case. Go to Freedom Watch, USA.org, contribute. We're going up against very powerful interests. These are tax-deductible contributions. We need your help. We will find the judge that will enforce the law. Now, let me get into another issue. Ilhan Omar, representative from Minnesota, radical Muslim congresswoman. Her buddies up there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Congresswoman Tlaib. Others, Bernie Sanders, everybody else, are doing their best to destroy the vision of our founding fathers. They want everything from reparations. They want everything but including trashing Israel, our Judeo-Christian heritage. They want us to abandon that. I can go on and on and on. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to do all these different things. Ilhan Omar is supported, you can see several articles just in the last week, in The Nation. The Nation is a communist publication. It's no accident that these individuals are, in effect, communists, supported by a communist periodical called The Nation. They want to wage a Bolshevik-style revolution. They want to take this country down. They want to destroy it. Well, when I bring, legitimate actions, Ilhan Omar has committed immigration fraud. Ilhan Omar is cavorting with groups that have ties to terrorism. These are crimes. And I filed a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security in the last few weeks against her, asking for an investigation, asking for prosecution and deportation of Ilhan Omar as just one example of what I've done. Years before that, I filed a deportation petition with regard to Obama. Obama's birth certificate is fraudulent. We wanted an investigation, but no action has been taken. Now I'm going to go to court to force both of these things to happen. And I'm sorry if this is called way out or a conspiracy theorist, but you know what? I'm right. And go to our website, go to our YouTube, see 300,000 people have been looking at an appearance I had with Anderson Cooper where I challenged him on this. They know that I'm right. I'll be right back with General Paul Vallely, who also knows that I'm right, and I know that he's right. And he's the kind of person that takes action here, just doesn't talk.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with retired General, Major General Paul Vallely, a great man. I've gotten to know him over the years. We were advocates on behalf of the victims of Extortion 17, the largest loss of life in the Afghan war. We are continuing to pursue that. We have a lawsuit against not just Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan, the Taliban, Iran, and those kinds of things. We haven't given up on getting justice there or finding out what happened within our military with regard to that event. But I want to talk with the general about Laurie Loon, who we had on the show last week. He knew Laurie Loon. Laurie Loon was the head booker at Fox News. He knows a lot about Fox News. He's followed it over the years. He had a contract with Fox News to do consultancy and to go on the air. And, General, I wanted to get your impression of the whole Laurie Loon story. I know that you communicated with her this week and gave her your best regards and support. But also I want to get your take on what's been going on at Fox News, because just this week, Fox News, who now is separate as part of Fox, was broken away from the Disney merger that the Murdochs sold out most of their holdings in 20th Century Fox, now 21st Century Fox, to a Disney. They put Paul Ryan, of all people, former Speaker of the House, on their board of directors and hired Donna Brazile. She's the one who was formerly head of the Democratic National Committee and who was improperly and unethically giving the questions to Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential debates. And I could go on about Fox News. But, General, put this in perspective based upon your experience, and then we'll talk about, what's been going on in the Middle East and get your expertise on that.
Well, thank you, Larry. I'm happy to be on your program, and I think the world of what you're doing out there. You're a courageous patriot, and that's good. Well, I think I was the first military guy hired by Roger Ailes 1 week after 9/11. So I was an on-air contributor for almost 8 years, did over 1,200 shows on Fox. And I knew most of the principals in New York as well as Washington, D.C. I started out in Washington the first couple of years, and then I ended up being produced out of the New York Fox office there. But I got to know Lori very well in Washington. She did a lot of my bookings for Tony Snow and for the other programs, and liaisoning with the bookers in New York is what they did to coordinate the programs. And it was a situation there that everybody sort of didn't want to associate with her because the word was, well, she's Roger's girl. And you can tell, or I could tell at that time, something was really beyond just that. But I never knew why, because I never wanted to pry into her personal business. But there was animosity. So she lived in a very horrific type of environment there in the Washington Bureau. And so when all the information came out about Roger, and Roger once said to me, he said, I made you a star on television. I said, well, thank you, Roger. But there were never any innuendos or sexual type of tryst or things that I knew about at Fox. Of course, when you put a lot of attractive women and men together, things happen. So over the years, Fox, when Murdoch took over basically with his son, and they started to do the programming, over a year ago, 2 years ago, I guess? Not sure. They put a whole new management team in. Bill Shine left, and, of course, he went to work for the president. But you could see them drifting really to the left and the middle, and the number of contributors that I knew were taken off a contract, like Gerald McInerney, Captain Chuck Nash, Colonel Bill Cowan, and a number of particularly over the past 2 years. And so basically my position now, I'm boycotting Fox. I mean, I just can't stand the direction they're going, and putting Paul Ryan in on the board. I mean, give me a break. That guy wasn't successful at anything. Never supported the president. And then you have Donna Brazile, who basically was a corrupt individual. Maybe she still is, I don't know. But to have her then come on the air, what signal? The only signal I can think of is that it seems Brett Baer and maybe the other gentleman at Fox, Shepard.
Chris Wallace?
Well, Chris Wallace, they're all anti-Trumpers. And so the thing against my good friend Judge Janine, and undermine her for speaking the truth, it just shows you the direction that Fox is going. So I'm very disturbed with them, Larry.
Well, we really need another major conservative network. I read a report this week that Sean Hannity, and he's not one of my favorites, for a lot of reasons. I won't get into it. But ideologically, I agree with him in many things. But he said he thinks Fox is probably going to be sold now that it's been broken away from Disney, because that's really all that's left. And I just hope that we can put together some kind of investment or whatever, and someone can purchase Fox News and make it really a conservative network, because it's not anymore. It talks out of both sides of its mouth. People are confused. And, I can go on and on. We don't have enough time in this segment.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can find some way to salvage some competition in this conservative media market.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I want to talk to you, General, about what's been going on, and this is kind of a segue from what happened to Judge Jeanine Pirro, just simply pointing out that Ilhan Omar, because she wears the headdress, I always mispronounce that. Habib, yeah. Yeah, sometimes I call it a kebab, but it's a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's meat on a stick.
Right. Well, there's a good place, out here. But in any event, if you are following Sharia law, okay, you believe in certain things. I mean, there are good Muslims in the world. In my opinion, they're no longer Muslim. They went somewhere else. But she didn't say anything that was really offensive, but they took her off the air. And it was about Ilhan Omar, who's made not just a number of anti-Semitic remarks, but obviously hates Israel, is from Somalia. And this week we see some of these communist publications like The Nation really trying to back her up. They're going up against Netanyahu. General, I'm a Jewish Christian. I really, respect and love my heritage of being Jewish. I'm a Zionist. And to me, Israel is tantamount to the security of this country, and that we have this common Judeo-Christian heritage, the home of Jesus, the home of Moses, the home of David. And what I see in this country, and I can say this, but I see a lot of the Jewish left trying to destroy Israel. So you see a lot of these people on the left at the New York Times and at The Nation and elsewhere trying to take it down, and they actually collaborated with Ilhan Omar trying to get her elected. They donated a lot of money to her. Now they find out that she hates them too. So I wanted to get your take on this, because I've often said about my leftist Jewish brothers and sisters that, if we had World War II over again and Hitler, they'd probably get on the boxcars thinking they were going to summer camp. So, what's been going on here? I mean, this is spinning wildly out of control, and Netanyahu's going to be in the country this week for AIPAC and a visit with the president. And yet, there's a huge push by the left to destroy Israel, this anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party, and poor Jeanine Pirro can't even tell the truth on Fox News without getting booted.
Right. Well, if you go back and you look at the Quran, there's nothing about the Habib in there. The Islamists have taken that on in the Middle East countries to put that on women. And Afghanistan's probably been the worst, and then maybe Iran and so on. But the fact of it is that she's a devout Islamist. She follows Sharia law. Sharia law is counter to the U.S. Constitution. These Islamists and radical Islamists that have infiltrated into America, into organizations like CARE and so on, everybody wants to be apologetic to the Muslims. Now, I have a lot of Muslim friends, and they're not looking for that. But the Islamists, you can say anything about Catholics, about Jews, or anybody else, but you can't say anything about Muslims or Islam. So it's a situation that's very scary here, especially how they're following their plan, the Islamists, to infiltrate into America, into Europe, which they've done very effectively, and in Sweden and other areas. And that's what they're doing, trying to get part of their plan to get Muslims into Congress that are radical, that are anti-Semitic, they're anti-Catholic, and they're anti-U.S. Constitution. So the voters out there, Larry, have to be educated. You cannot elect these people into government if they're Islamist. And if they don't, commit themselves to following the U.S. Constitution. It's a very easy test. But they're very good at what they're doing in rapidly expanding Islam and infiltrating, and we see it all around. But Bush never understood this. And, of course, I don't think our President Trump understood it until he really got into it, and some of us were able to brief Trump on what's happening there. And now he understands as well as anybody ever has, more than any other president. So,
well, yeah, and it's something that needs to be educated. I told a story on the show before. I remember going through TSA. I have pre-clearance. Okay, I have clear at airports because I travel a lot. And I went through recently at an airport, and the TSA guy checked me, and I said, "Why are you checking me? I've got pre-clearance. You're going head to toe." And I was a little bit facetious, and I said, I bet if I was a Muslim, you wouldn't be doing this, right? Because if you're a Muslim in this country, actually you have more rights than the rest of us in many ways. And he said, "Do you know, Mr. Klayman, you're right. I agree with you completely." He says, "This is absurd." And I told him who I was. I told him I founded Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch. He knew who I was. And, that's the sad reality is you can't say anything about Muslims. And there are good Muslims. I have Muslim friends, too. I brought cases for them who were persecuted. But, it's out of control right now. The Democratic Party is vehemently anti-Israel. This clown Beto O'Rourke, just ripped into Netanyahu and Israel recently. And so we need people like yourself, General, who are telling the truth about this. And, of course,
absolutely.
Jeanine Pirro, she's now in purgatory for a couple of weeks.
Where are the Jewish men and women as representatives in Congress and the Senate? Has any one of them ever stood up against what's going on with Omar?
Well, look who they are. See, this is
more
something
than I do.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm just saying you observe it probably better than I, but I observe it out here in Montana. What's going on with these Jewish leaders taking all this anti-Semitic rhetoric from these people?
Well,
don't they have any courage?
No, they don't. And, they're leftists. I mean, look at what we've got in the Senate and Congress. Chuck Schumer, he's Jewish. Gerald Nadler, who's trying to take the president apart, who is head of the House Judiciary Committee. Adam Schiff, head of the House Intelligence Committee. I can go on and on and on. These people are the biggest threat to the Jewish people in Israel. They're a bigger threat than Ilham Omar. I mean, that's the irony.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I started this group called Coalition of the Jewish Right. Okay, I was going to make a coalition of the Jewish Christian right. No, but I, as someone who was born Jewish, can speak out about this. And I am just disgusted and appalled by these people that they're selling out their own people. It's unbelievable to me. So I can say it.
Yeah, you're right. I've been invited back to Israel, which I've been there many times. I love Jerusalem, but I've been invited back to meet with some officials over there regarding Iran and my support of Cyrus Force, which is pursuing a free and democratic Iran. So I'm working very closely with them now. But I'll tell you what, I imagine the Israelis over there. Of course, they got their problem on the left in Israel, too, as you know. So
yes, a very big problem.
Fighting everything like Trump is.
It is. And we need to come together, Christians and Jews. We need to, enforce, not enforce, but at least preserve, our status in this country. We're losing it quickly, and I believe that everybody's entitled to equal rights. I'm a civil rights lawyer in part. Everybody, but we're all equal. Nobody has more rights than another group. So in any event, General, I really want to thank you for coming on. I'd like to have you back. You're my good friend. We've gotten to know each other over the years, and you are a true American patriot. Thank you. We'll be back with the verdict in just one moment.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
What's happening in this country today, and I don't mean this in a racial sense, but it's similar to what happened in South Africa. I'm going to write a column about this week on WorldNet Daily. You can read about it. I can write what I want on WorldNet Daily. I don't get censored, thank God. There's some other places that I do write for that I have to be a little bit more politic. But what we have here is a situation where you have these groups that are rising up who think that they have more rights than the rest of the American people. And in reality, in practice, they do have more rights. The majority no longer controls in this country. In fact, it's not always good that the majority does control, because there is right and there is wrong, and sometimes the majority goes off in the wrong direction. But when you're talking about these radical groups, whether it's radical Muslims, whether it's the Jewish left, whether it's radical atheists, radical feminists, radical gays, transgenders, lesbians, radical pro-immigrant groups that believe that illegal immigration is just fine. I can go on and on and on. They're banding together. You can see that. They want to take the country down. They want to destroy the country. And I was going through a fairly upper-class middle neighborhood the other day, looking at how nice it was and everything else. And I was thinking to myself that if these groups had their way, and these people that, have these houses in these neighborhoods, generally they worked hard to get that. And they're of all ethnic groups, all religious groups and everything else. But these radicals, I can see someday, just like the African National Congress has done in South Africa, removing these people from their homes and occupying those homes because they deserve reparations, whether it's reparations, for African Americans or reparations for Muslims or reparations for radical feminists or reparations for atheists or anybody else who are trying to take this country down. I can see them rising up violently and pushing out people from this country. Because, in South Africa today, there are laws that are being debated where the majority there, the black majority, can just simply claim land from the whites without even paying compensation. The president made reference to that a while back. Now, that's not to say that apartheid was right. It was wrong. I went to South Africa 3 times as a young lawyer for an international trade law firm that I was with before I started my own. I thought it was abhorrent. I didn't like the fact that 17 blacks were bringing me grape juice at a swimming pool. It was disgusting. In fact, when I left this law firm, I refused to represent the government of South Africa. They wanted to hire me. I was the young associate. I was doing all the work. They knew who was doing the work on these anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases. I said, no, I'm not going to represent you in principle. I don't like you people. But the reality is that we're headed in that direction. South Africa's gone downhill, since the white government fell. It's gone downhill. It's got a lot of crime, property's being taken improperly. And that doesn't mean that white government was right. It was wrong. They were racist. But we are headed to that point right now where I believe that we're becoming another South Africa. So I'm sure that Right Wing Watch and all these lunatics on the left will take this out of context. But I'm telling you, this country is being taken apart. And that's why we need our citizens' grand juries, because we need to bring about justice. Everybody deserves equal rights in this country. I don't care what race, religion, creed, or whatever you are. You deserve the same rights. Not preference, but the same rights. And you don't deserve anything because you were born white. You don't deserve anything because you were born black or yellow or green or blue. Talk about reparations. My people, the Jewish people, we built the pyramids. Should we be paid reparations by the government of Egypt over that? I mean, this is the point of absurdity here. But yes, these things are being taken seriously. Our country's been taken down. Go to our website at freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause, because we're swimming upstream. We're not doing what is politically correct. We don't sugarcoat. We're not spewing forth the BS that you hear on Fox News and other places, trying to play it safe. We are here to represent the interests of the American people, just like Adams and Jefferson did, from 2 different perspectives. But the one perspective they had in common is they were patriots, and they wanted freedom, and they wanted to preserve freedom and create freedom. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Support our citizens' grand juries. Support our hard-hitting cases. Support this radio show. Share it. Contribute to our cause. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, pray to our Creator that we will emerge from this period stronger than ever. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. And God save America.